All right, let's dive into one of the most foundational stories out there, Genesis chapter 3. Whether you see it as literal history, a powerful allegory, or just a foundational myth, this one short chapter has had a huge impact on our ideas about human nature, morality, and our place in the world. So let's get right into it.
Everything, and I mean everything, kicks off with this one simple question. It comes from the serpent, who's described as the most cunning animal of all. And just look at the strategy here. It's not a direct challenge, not yet. It's just planting a seed of doubt. Did God really say? That little question mark is designed to make you second-guess everything, and it subtly twists what God actually commanded.
And that leads us right into our first section, the serpent's temptation. Now, you'll see some text here in another language. That's Cebuano, from the source material we're using. This first part is all about that initial conversation, that back and forth that really sets up the whole conflict. It's basically a masterclass in persuasion. And boom, here it is. A direct, head-on collision of two different statements. On one side, you have God's command, which the woman recites, and she even adds that bit about not touching it. But on the other side, you have the serpent's flat-out denial. You will not surely die. This is the moment where doubt turns into a direct contradiction. It creates a choice. Who are you going to believe?
But see, the serpent doesn't just stop there. It completely reframes the situation. Disobedience isn't about death anymore. Now it's a shortcut to enlightenment, to becoming something more. The promise is just so tempting, isn't it? You won't just live. You'll be like God, and you'll finally know the difference between good and evil.
So now we get to section 2. The forbidden fruit. This is where all that buildup leads to the absolute turning point of the story. It's the moment of choice, the act itself. Temptation is about to meet its end.
What's so fascinating is how the text breaks down her thinking. This wasn't just some impulsive grab. She actually thinks it through. First, the practical. It looked good for food. Then, the aesthetic. It was pleasing to the eye. And finally, the intellectual appeal. It was desirable for gaining wisdom, exactly what the serpent had promised.
And here's a really key point. This wasn't a solo act. She eats, and then she gives some to her husband, who the text says was right there with her, and he eats too. His choice is presented so simply without all the reasoning we just saw from her. The act is now complete, and it's shared.
So, what happens next? Well, in a way, the serpent was both right and wrong. They didn't drop dead, not physically. But something changed instantly. Their minds were opened, and the very first thing they realize is that they're naked. This is the birth of shame, of self-consciousness, of vulnerability, all entering the human story for the first time.
So what's the first thing they do with this brand new awareness? They hide. Think about that. Before, they walked with God. Now, the sound of him walking in the garden fills them with fear. The relationship is immediately fractured. That old innocence is gone, replaced by fear and hiding.
Of course, their hiding doesn't go unnoticed. And that leads us straight into our third section, God's confrontation. This isn't just about figuring out what happened. It's about getting to the bottom of who is responsible. Listen to God's first question. It's not what did you do? It's where are you? It sounds like a simple question about location, right? But it's so much deeper. It's an invitation to come out of hiding, to show yourself, and to admit that something has fundamentally changed between them. The man's response is, wow. Just a masterclass in shifting blame. He doesn't just point the finger at the woman. Listen closely to how he words it. The woman you put here with me. In one sentence, he passes the buck to the woman and, at the same time, sort of implies that God is also to blame for giving her to him in the first place. So then God turns to the woman, and what happens? The pattern just continues. She, in turn, blames the serpent. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Nobody takes responsibility. The blame just gets passed down the line, and that whole chain reaction of deflection starts right here. All right, so with all the actions and excuses laid out, we get to our fourth section, the punishment and curse. The story now shifts to the consequences. And these consequences are going to change everything for everyone involved. What's so interesting here is that the consequences aren't just random. They're tailored to each character. The serpent, the tempter, is brought low. The woman's role in creating life will now come with pain, and her relationship with her husband is changed. And the man, who is supposed to care for the garden, now has to fight against a cursed ground just to get food.
But even in the middle of all this judgment, there's this really incredible moment. The man names his wife Eve, which means mother of all the living. It's this little spark of hope, a look toward the future that says, hey, despite all this hardship and the new reality of death, life is going to continue. Humanity has a future.
And now we come to the final act of the story, the expulsion from the garden. This is the part that makes the new reality permanent. The consequences aren't just about their experience changing, they're about their location changing for good.
So why were they kicked out? Well, the reason is spelled out for us right here. The serpent's promise kind of came true. Humanity is now like one of us, knowing good and evil. The big danger now is that they might eat from the tree of life and become immortal, locking them into this new broken state forever. So the exile is actually a preventative measure.
And the finality here is just absolute. They're sent out to work the very ground they came from, which is a powerful reminder of where they started. And the path back, it isn't just closed, it's guarded by these supernatural beings, cherubim, and a flaming sword. There is no going back. The separation is total.
And that brings us to our final thought. The story really ends on this fundamental trade-off.